Hello, welcome to today's class. My name is Olushola Timothy Ogundepo, and I'm a data scientist who leverages the use of advanced data analytics to drive business growth while mentoring future leaders in data innovation. If you remember clearly, in our last class, you learned how to convert a data range into a well-formatted table, and you also learned that table automatically expands when a new data is entered, and it ensures dynamic adjustment of formulas. Today, we will be treating pivot table and how to make use of it for data analysis in Microsoft Excel. First, what is pivot table? Pivot table is a powerful data analysis tool in Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet that allows users to summarize, explore, and reorganize large datasets interactively. It transforms raw data into a concise and insightful summary, helping data analysts identify patterns, trends, and insights without altering the original dataset. One of the core purposes of using pivot table in Microsoft Excel is to aggregate datasets. Take for example, summing, averaging, and having a count of a category while also making use of maximum and minimum functions. And also, it helps segment data by different dimensions. Take for example, date, category, and region in dataset. One of the questions that will come to mind is why is pivot table matter in data analytics? Pivot table enables instant analysis of thousands of rows of data with minimal effort. This is telling us of the speed of its use. And also, it enables flexible sorting and filtering. Take, for example, rearranging and reconfiguring data views without modifying the dataset. That is one of the functionalities that pivot table enables us to do. It also provides insight through summarization and grouping. Take, for example, with this insight generation, it enables us to spot trends, outlier, and correlation in a visual, in a digestible way. It also supports decision making as it enables presenting summaries that support data-driven decision making. Now that you know what a pivot table is and all its benefits, let's see how to get one done using a sales dataset collected from both America and Europe region. First, we have to select the data range. The moment the data range is selected, we then locate where a pivot table is under the insert ribbon, and then we use the existing worksheet or the new worksheet that we would like to place the pivot table in. So let's see how to get that done in our practical lab. We'll be using this particular dataset called sales dataset to implement the functionality of pivot table. So as you can see, the name of our dataset is called C sales. So we'll be using this dataset to do that. And you see in our dataset we have many attributes. We have company, company name and region. We have sales document, document date, the customer code, customer name, product code, product description, quantity, sales USD. Those are the attributes we have in our dataset. So we want to aggregate this dataset using our pivot table. Now let's do that. So we locate where our insert ribbon is. The moment you are on the insert ribbon, you'll see this particular pivot table under the table group. So the moment I click on this pivot table, you see that this captures the entire dataset immediately. And the reason for that is because I'm inside the T sales dataset. And as you can see, it shows immediately that the table that I am in is T sales. So now I want to perform the pivot table inside a new worksheet. So assuming you have one particular space where you want to put your pivot table in your dataset, you can just navigate to this existing worksheet. So you can then locate where the place is in your worksheet. But because our fact table is in this worksheet, that's why it's not advisable to put our pivot table there. So it is advisable to just put it in a new worksheet, and that's what I'll be doing. So I will create a new worksheet and then click on OK. So you see, immediately I click on OK, a new worksheet was created for me called Sheet 2. So within this Sheet 2, I can then perform all the aggregation and the analysis I want to do. And immediately I am within the pivot table, you see that there is this particular ribbon called Pivot Table Analyze. Within this pivot table analyze, I can get a lot of things done. I can name my pivot table to any name I want. Take for example, let's say aggregate region data. So immediately I give it this name, This particular pivot table will be called aggregate region data. And you will see that under this ribbon, I have various groups. I have active feed, I have groups, I have filter, date, I have data, actions, calculations, tools, and show. With this show, I can hide various things on my screen. Take for example, assuming I don't want to have this on my screen again, I can just click on this feed. Immediately I click on this feed, all the things that are on this pivot table will be hidden. And the buttons that will be created for us inside the pivot table will also be hidden. While these feed headers will also be hidden if I click them. So the reason why you can't really see anything now is because we have not created anything. Now let's see how we can quickly summarize our data set. Let's summarize our data set based on the region that we put there. So we want to aggregate the region. So now let me put the region in the row section here. Immediately I drag the region to be on the row section, you see that a table was automatically created for us here. So with that, I can quickly summarize my data set. Take for example, I want to have the total sales in USD for this particular region. Then I can put this and then drag it to be on the values section. And immediately I put it on the value section, you see that immediately we have the value on our calculation. And you see that by default, the aggregation that was done for us is called sum. Take for example, I want to change it from sum to be average. So I can just navigate to this particular drop down icon. Immediately I click on this drop down icon, I can go to the value feed settings. So if I click on this value feed settings, I can change it from sum to average. As you can see, I have summarized value feed by, then I can click on the average that I wish to do it. And as you can see, I can even custom the name given to that particular field. I can custom it to be some other names. Take for example, AVG. Let me say AVG sales, and then remove this USD and then put dollar sign. So immediately I do that, I will just click on OK. Or even before I click on OK, I can even still show the value to be in another formatting. Take for example, I want to put dollar sign at the front of the number. So I can still get that done using this number formatting. So immediately I am on that, I can do that and then navigate to the currency section. So you see, as you can see here, I can just give it a currency symbol here. I use this particular symbol. That's the symbol I want to use. So and then I say OK. So I think that's okay for me. That's what I want to use. Then I say OK. Immediately I click on OK, you see that the table is now formatted to be in dollar sign, and even all the formatting I set are now in place. And you see the name of the particular column to be AVG sales in dollar sign. So that is how you can quickly summarize your data set. You see now we were able to quickly summarize the region data to get their average value for each region. In Europe, we were able to see that we have 2,489 sales in Europe, while at America, we were able to see that we have 1,360.95 dollar in America. So that's basically how you can quickly summarize your data set. Now, instead of me filtering the dataset by region, I can even show them side by side to be able to compare this the way the product is performing in one region to the other side. So I can do that by just dragging this filter, the region from filter, I can drag it to be on the column level. Immediately I put it on the column level here, you will see that the region will now be side by side. The product that was sold in America, we have them here, and also the one that was sold in Europe, we have them too here. Immediately you see that almost all the products here are being purchased in America. Like we have more purchases in America compared to Europe. As you can see, we have four product purchases in Europe compared to America, where we have many purchases. So that is how we can detect how one particular state or region is performing compared to the other region with the use of pivot table. Moving on, it is advisable you ensure that your data is structured with headers and no blank rows or columns. As you can see, in the dataset that we just used finished now, we ensure that the dataset we are using has an header. All the column has an header, and that's why we are able to do our analysis based on the column. Assuming we don't have column, there is no way we can get all this done. So it is advisable to ensure that our headers are within the right order, and also that we ensure we undo all the blank rows in our dataset before we go on with the analysis. Now let's look into how we can sort, filter, and summarize dataset in pivot table. If we want to sort a dataset in pivot table, this is basically done as the same way we do while sorting a table. So let's see that in action. As you can see, take for example, we want to sort the purchases that we have in America. We want to see it in ascending order. How can we get that done? The moment we are within the pivot table and we locate where the particular column is. So the easiest way of getting that done is just by right clicking on that particular value. Take for example the first value or the second value. So immediately I right click on it, you will see one particular value, one particular option called sort. As you can see, we have sort smallest to largest. We have sort largest to smallest. So I can just click on this. Immediately I click on that, you see that we are American purchases are now in ascending order. We have 250, 260, 360, 440, 800, and so on and so forth. With that, we are able to see how the products are performing in America, and also for the Europe too. We can see how that one too is performing. Let me right click here. Immediately I right click on the second row, you see that that particular option comes up, and I can just click on this sort from largest to smallest. So immediately I click on from largest to smallest, you see the value. We see that the one that is performing well in Europe is this smartphone case diamond, and another one that is performing in Europe is laptop bag red. So that's how we are able to summarize the data and sort it in ascending and in descending while in pivot table. Okay, let's take for example, I want to sort this grand total also to be in largest from largest to smallest for these two particular region. I can still achieve that by using the particular method I introduced you to now. So let me quickly right click on it and then locate sort from largest to smallest. Immediately I do that, you see that we have the total aggregation for it by the region. In pivot table, we have two different ways of filtering data. We have the first one, which is the use of filter, while the second one is the use of slicer. So that can help us to refine the view of how we filter data set in pivot table. Now let's see those two in action. I know that I've already introduced you to how to use filter, but now you haven't seen how to use slicer. Let me quickly show you that. Take for example, we want to filter our data set based on the company's name. The moment we are within the data set, the first method I introduce you to is just dragging the company name into this filter box. The moment we find ourselves in the filter box, you see that the pivot table is now filtered to only this particular company, which is Locals Basics. And we can change it from local basics to meta creation and even select multiple. So let me quickly just select meta creation. Immediately I click on meta creation, you see that the particular product sold by meta creation is now selected, and we have the way those ones are performing. And I know that by now you should notice one particular trend, that this particular meta creation is not showing Europe. And that is just telling us basically that this particular content is within America and not Europe. That's why you can't see Europe. So take for example, I don't want to select multiple items this time around. I just want to select urban right. Immediately I click on OK, you see that that is also selected for us. And I see that this one too is in America, and the product that is performing better in here in the particular region is this four products. So take for example, if I click on this local basics, I can see that that local basics is in Europe. So we see how that one too is performing. And from there, we are able to see that these four products are performing better in Europe. So the second way of showing a filter is through the use of slicer. And mind you, if you want to take off a particular value of the box, you can just drag it from here and then drag it to this place. Immediately you drag it to this place or you drag it to the top here, you will see that particular cross icon activated, and that is telling you that this particular thing is now ready to be discarded. So immediately I leave it and then drop it, you see that that thing is now removed from the filter box. So the second way of filtering in pivot table is through the use of slicer. And don't forget that when we are within the pivot table, there is this particular option that is always activated for us, this particular ribbon called pivot table analyze. When we switch to this particular ribbon, you see that we have insert slicer here under the filter group. We have insert slicer. So if I click on this insert slicer, you see that this insert slicer shows us all the attributes that we have within our data set. So now we can now click on the attribute we want to use for our filtering. So immediately I click on this company name and then click on OK. You see that this company name is now showing as our filter. I can click on any value here and you see that the pivot table is being filtered to the thing I clicked. So now let me click on meta creation, and from there I can also click on local basic, and you see how the three companies are performing. If you would like to adjust this particular slicer, you can just click on the gear icon here and then adjust it so that it will fit to what you want it to fit. So I can even drag it from here to this place. So immediately I do that, you see that our data set is being filtered to what I select in the slicer. I'm sure you can already summarize your data set using the sum, count, average, mean, max in the numeric field by just going to the value field I showed you the other time. First, what is calculated field? Calculated field is a custom field derived from existing data field using formulas. Take for example, we want to determine the multiplication of this sales USD with the quantity that we have here so as to find the total sales that we have in our data set. How can we do that? We can easily do that by navigating to this pivot table analyze and then locate where we have this field items and set under the calculation group. The moment we click on it, you see that we have this calculated field here. If I click on this calculated field, I can calculate whatever I want to calculate using the fields that are within my data set. So I want to calculate total sales, and now this is asking me the formula that I want to use. And if you remember, I want to calculate the quantity multiplied by the sales USD. So I want to say quantity multiply by the sales USD. So I click on add. Immediately I add that, you see what happened, that I can now click on OK. Immediately I click on OK, I have the total sales in my options here. I have the total sales as part of the fields that are within my data set. Though this one is not within the data set, it's just created virtually for us, but it seems as if it's within our data set. Though it's not within our data set, this is being calculated by pivot table field. So take for example, it has already been added into our data set, which is this total sales. As you can see, we have total sales for different regions that we select. So we have the average fee that we clicked the other time, and also we have the total sales. So I can just remove that from the feed. So instead of me having the average sales, I can drag that up the feed and then put the total sales there. Immediately I click on the total sales, you see that we have the total sales in our data set. So I have the one for Europe, especially for this particular company, Lucas Basic. If I click on meta creation, I have total sales there as well. So I can just change this particular calculation from this format to be in another format. So I can click on this format cell. Immediately I click there and then click on this format cell. I can change the currency to be in this particular format. Then I click on OK. So immediately I do that, you see that we are able to see the way that is performing. I mean, we are able to see how that is showing in this particular currency. Though this is not applying to the rest of our table, that's not what you are looking for to do. What we want to do is that we want to format it to apply the format to all the values in our data. So instead of right clicking here, you can quickly locate this particular drop down icon and then locate the value field settings. From there, we can navigate to where our number formatting is and then do that particular thing again. So with that, we are able to get that done. And then we click on OK. And you see that immediately I do that, the rest of the data set is now showing in this particular format, which is what we're actually looking for to see. So I'm sure you already seen how to use calculated field with the example I used previously. You can also use it to also determine the profit by just saying sales minus cost. But the particular data set that we are working on now is not in that particular way. So that's why we quickly calculate the total sales using the multiplication of quantity by the sales USD. It's time to introduce you to how to perform various data visualization in Microsoft Excel. We have various visualization techniques in Microsoft Excel, one of which is bar chart, which enables you to compare categorical data. Now let's see how to use bar chart in Microsoft Excel. I'm sure you have been introduced to this dataset in our previous class. So this time around, we will be using a visualization technique to visualize this store location and also this total sales so that we see the way this store location is performing by the product category. So now let's do that. I will quickly highlight these two particular column and then I navigate to the insert ribbon. The moment I find myself in the insert ribbon, then I click on this column or bar chart icon. The moment you see that, you see this 2D column chart. So I will click on this first option there, which is the column chart. As you can see, the moment we click on this column chart, you see that this particular visual get generated for us. Now, looking at the visual, we can easily tell that Ikorodu is the one that has the highest total sales among the three regions that we selected. And also, this particular visual also enables us to add different values on the visual. Take for example, we want to have the actual value of this particular bar. We want to have it at the top of it. This is what we call data bar. So if you want to add it to it, you can quickly do that by just clicking on this plus icon. The way to select this plus icon, you see that you have this data label at the top. If I click on it, you'll be able to see the actual value of that particular bar. Now from there, if I wish, I can even uncheck this. I can disable this from showing in our visualization. I can disable the x-axis from showing by just placing the data bar. So take for example, I want to disable the x-axis. So if I click on this axis, you see the primary horizontal axis and the primary vertical axis. If I uncheck this primary vertical axis, you see that that particular value gets removed for us. Even if I wish, I can remove the grid that is within the visual by just clicking on it and then pressing delete on my keyboard. You see that immediately I do that, the grid was removed for us. And if you look at the top of the screen, you see that immediately we created this particular visual. This chart design get pop up for us. And from here, we can easily change the style of our data set and also do various things. Take for example, under this data, if you would like to change your data from row to column, it will change the row to be on the column level and the column to be on the row level. Let me return it back to how it was. And you can even change the data set that was selected by just navigating to this select data. Immediately you do that, you can modify a lot of things here. You see that in our own case here, the data sales was selected and also the store location. With this, we know that that is actual data point that was selected in our data visualization. So that is right. Let me leave it the way it is. Also, you can change the location of this visual by navigating to this move chart. This can enable you to like move the chart from one spreadsheet to the other. Take for example, maybe you have one particular spreadsheet down here and you would like to move it to that particular spreadsheet. You can just click on this move chart. Take for example, in this moving object, you can navigate to where you want to put the visual. The visual will be moved to that particular sheet that you click among the list here. So take for example, if I want to put it in a new sheet, I can just put it and then put it there and then name the sheet that I want to put it. Then that will get moved for me. So I'm not doing that now. And in another word, you can also get that done by just using Ctrl X on your keyboard to do the moving. Or if you want to copy it, you can just use Ctrl C to also copy the visual from one particular sheet to the other. Now let's quickly look at the layout that spreadsheet enables us to use while presenting our data visualization. We have various layouts that you can choose from. Take for example, the moment you are under the chart layout here, if you click on this quick layout, you'll be able to see all the layouts that you can use to present your data. As I'm hovering over it, you see that the data is changing according to how I'm moving from one layout to the other. As you can see the layout, you see the layout. Instead of me creating one by myself, I can just easily click on this quick layout and locate the one that suits my interest. Then I will just click OK. The moment I have what I'm looking for, this one enables you to show the legend at the right hand of the screen, and also enables you to show the title on the x-axis while also showing the title on the y-axis. That is what this one is telling. Why this is showing it to be like a clustered chart where the charts are joined as if it were a histogram. Also, alternative to clicking on this plus icon is by navigating to this add chart element. This is still more the same thing as what this plus icon is doing. You can navigate to this add chart element if you want to add any element to your chart. Take for example the axis, the x-axis title, or the y-axis title, or the title of your visualization, or the chart title, the data label, and all the other ones, error bar and everything like that. If you want to do that, you can easily do that too inside this tab, which you can still get done under this particular section as well, so that they are the same thing. So it's worth noting that you can easily get what is here done by clicking on this plus icon here. Also, by clicking on this plus icon, you see that even this data label, you can change the formatting of this data label by just clicking on this forward icon. The moment you click on it, you'll be able to see various ways where you can place the data label. As you can see, there is a way in which you can use the callout. If I use this callout icon, then that means I don't need this x-axis again. I can just go to where the x-axis is and then click on delete. Immediately I click on delete, you see that that x-axis has been deleted, and now I have the callout label showing Yaba and the value for that particular location to be there, the Ikorodu, and the value for that to be there as well. And as you can see, you can also see the title of that particular visualization. If I want to change it, I can easily click on the title and then start typing whatever I want to type there. Performance of three different store locations, as you can see. By doing so, you see that we are able to give it a descriptive title. And mind you, as I introduced already, that you can change your chart type easily by navigating to anywhere here so that you can apply formatting to your visualization, and anyone that catches your interest you can change it to it, but I think I prefer the way it is currently. All I just need to do is just change the layout to be what I wish to make it. Like for example, if it were to be like this, it's okay. I can just name this title to be, let's take for example, this is the total sales. So as you can see, we have the total sales, and now our visual is looking well. Another chart that we also need to know well is called line chart. This helps us to be able to show the trends of a data set over time. Take for example, the sales data set that we are working on the other time. We want to compare the performance of sales for one particular product over time. Let's see that in action in our practical lab. Yes, as you can see, this particular table has already been featured to only the laptop bag red product. So this is the only one we have for this particular data set. We want to see the sales for this particular product over time. With the use of line chart, we can get that done. Now let's see how to do that. So first thing first, we need to select the two columns that we want to show. The first one is this particular document date. So by holding Ctrl Shift down arrow, I'll be able to select that and also select the sales USD while holding down my control. If I click on this and then press Ctrl Shift down arrow again, then I have the two selected. So I can now locate where the insert ribbon is and then navigate to where the line chart is. We have this 2D line. The moment I click on this 2D line, you see that we can now start presenting our data set on a line chart. By default, you see that our chart is just showing a pure graph without showing us the title of our y-axis or the title of our x-axis and also the title of our graph. So let's quickly add the title to it by navigating to this particular section and then clicking on axis title. As you can see, we have axis title here. The moment I click on it, I can add the primary and also the horizontal axis. So I can then name it to be the sales over time, while the x-axis is the date. And now the chart type title should be sales trend for laptop bag red product. As you can see, with the use of this particular line chart, we can see how this particular product is being purchased over time. As you can see, we have highest purchases on the 24th of the 6th month in the year 2020. As you can see, with the use of line charts, we are able to tell that. And also, as I already introduced you to before, this particular chart design can also come in handy when we are trying to come up with a trend. As you can see you can see how everything is designed, so which we can easily choose the one that catches our interest. And also the quick layout tool is there, where we can see how different layers are designed. As you can see, now I prefer the one that we have already. So that if you want to create a line chart in Microsoft Excel, this is exactly the process you follow to create a line chart. Moving on to pie chart. Pie chart helps in showing the proportion of categories of a dataset. With the use of pie chart, we can see how one particular category is performing compared to the other categories based on the percentage distribution of each category. So let's see how to do that. I already placed all the product category in this particular proportion sheet, where I have all my products being aggregated with their total sales here. So I have the total sales for all my products here. So if I want to see the performance of all these products in a pie chart and see the percentage that is attributed to each of these products, we can easily get that done through the use of pie chart. So the first thing I do is to select the two. I select this and also select this as well by holding Control on my keyboard, and then navigating to where the insert ribbon is. So immediately we are on this chart group, you see that we have pie chart there. As you can see now, under the 2D pie chart, if I click on this 2D pie chart, you'll see what happened for us. The pie chart was created automatically for us, and now we see that the legend color is now being used to represent all the products. For laptop bag black, we can see the color that was shown for that. So the first thing to do in this case, since our legend has a color representation, then we can quickly navigate to where this color is and then change it to fit the product that we are currently selected. So I can just click on this, I click on only this series and then I click on it. So I can change the color by clicking on this field. The moment I take it up, you see that the color will change, and then I can just click on the color that best narrate that particular segment. And also for laptop back red, this is being shown with brown, which is not the case. So I can do the same thing on that as well, and then I click on it and then locate where the field is. As you can see under here, I then click on that particular red color so as to show for that. For the main basics, that's good. For the main dress shirt black, this one can just change it from here and then give it, let's say I give it light black, so as it will not be the same thing as the one that we have here already. So then I click on it and then go to the field. So I will give it one light black color, one light black color. With that, we have our chart. So I can just give it the title here, which is product sales proportion. With that, we are able to give our chart a good format. And as you already know, we can also change the design of this particular chart by navigating to this chart style. We see various chart style that we can use, but the one we have currently is okay for us. And you will notice that we are yet to show any percentage for all the groups that we have here. So in order to add that, we can just navigate to where this particular chart element is and then click on this data label. But by default, the data label that we added for us will be the actual value, but that's not what we want. We want a percentage. So I can navigate to this particular arrow so as to see the more option. With that, I'll be able to uncheck this particular value and then click on this percentage. If I click on the percentage, you see, and then uncheck this particular value. Now with that, we are able to show the percentage of each category. So the first thing I also want to do is to place all the percentage at the end of this chart instead of having them inside and outside, because that is what is currently selected, the best fit. That's why I place them there. So I put everything at the outside end. With that, we are able to see the performance of different categories of our data set. We can also navigate to this quick layout to see how different products can be represented using the default layout created by Microsoft, as you can see. So the one we have currently is okay. If I like, I can also put this particular legend to be at the right corner here. So by just double clicking on this, if I double click on it, it will activate the legend. Then by going to this particular legend option, if I click on this legend option, you'll see that we have different ways on where we can put our legend. It's either I choose this top right or I choose the right. So the right is okay because that one is putting it at the middle. So we are able to get that done easily with the use of this chart format chart area. To activate this format chart area is as easy as you double clicking on any of the objects on the chart. Let me quickly change the position of this particular title. You can just adjust it to be at the middle here, which is good. Yes, we have our product sales proportion. Another chart that Microsoft Excel also enables us to do is called scatter plot. This scatter plot enables us to show correlation between two different attributes in our data set. Let me show you how to use that in our practical lab. To easily clarify this particular scatter plot, I generated these two data points so that you'll be able to understand when to use scatter plot and when not to use it. We have this data point and also S square. So if I want to show the correlation between these two variables, I can just highlight it the way I've been doing for all the other charts in our previous lesson. You can highlight it and then navigate to the insert ribbon and click on this scatter. Immediately I do that, you see that this thing get activated for us, and you will see that the reason why we don't have this particular chart title shown for us because we did not highlight the title as part of the data set. If we do, it will also show, it will give us maybe one default title. Let's test it. As you can see, we have one default title for us, but because we did not do that for this, that's the reason why we don't have any title. Okay, now let's quickly add title to this one. Let me quickly delete this one. Let's add title to this and then see all the various things that we can also do on scatter chart. Correlation between data points. So we can still navigate to our quick layout and see various layouts that Microsoft offers us to also use with the scatter plot. As you can see, I can show a trend line to show the correlation between the various points on the data chart. If you want to see the R square showing the correlation between the two values, you can use this particular point to show the linear correlation of the two data points. It is important to know all the best practices to follow while creating a chart in Microsoft Excel or in any data visualization you are working on. First, make sure you choose the right chart for your data because it's not all chart that you can use for all data sets. There are some instances that the data will demand you to use maybe bar chart or column stack chart or pie chart. If you use what is not meant to be used at that moment, you can be presenting what will be hard for your users to understand. So it is best to use the right chart type whenever you are making your data presentation or visualizing data. Also, ensure you use colors to differentiate categories clearly. At times, a categories can demand you to use a red color or black color. So instead of you using just the generic one given by Microsoft Excel, it is best to ensure that you use the right color to easily pass your information across to your user and for it to be understandable. Welcome to formatting chart. for better visualization. One of the best way of enhancing charts in Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet is by adding clear titles and labels, as we did in our previous lab, where we added the x-axis title and also the y-axis title. That will enables us to be able to pass the right information across to our user, so that they won't find it hard to know what the x-axis is representing or the y-axis is representing. Also, when you are working with a categorical data, ensure you add legend so as to denote what each category is representing. Ensure you format all the x-axis and y-axis of your dataset clearly for it to be readable by your user or when you are creating a dashboard. I believe you already know how to do all this. I'm only calling your attention to them so that you will be well equipped with all this information and you understand when to do that and when not to do that. Welcome to Visualizing Pivot Tables. In our previous lessons, you already know how to create a pivot table. Now, how can we present visuals from a pivot table? At times, you may not even need to create a pivot table and just create a pivot chart. With the use of pivot chart, you can create a dynamic chart that is able to perform calculation without manually inputting a formula. Be informed, if you create a pivot chart from a pivot table, the pivot chart will automatically update whenever the pivot table also updates. So that makes it to dynamically change with the way the pivot table is also changing. Now let's see how to create one. Now let's see how to create a pivot chart out of this pivot table. Immediately you are inside the pivot table, you will see this particular pivot table analyze, which I showed you in our previous class. Once you go to this particular pivot table analyze, under the tools group, you'll find the pivot chart. If I click on this pivot chart, you'll see that it has already recommended us to use this particular pivot table chart. So if I click on OK, you see that this particular chart generated automatically for us. Now, if we change the filter of our pivot table and then change it to locals, you see that the pivot chart also automatically change. Even the title changes and all the other part of it and the chart element also changes. Change it to urban right, that also changes. If you remember lastly, I showed you how this particular field button and the rest. I told you that uncheck them if you want to make sure that they don't show on your visualization or in your table. Now let's see how to get that done. Take for example, I don't want to show this particular sum of total sales and this product description in the pivot chart. I can just go to this particular field button and this field. If I click on this field button, you see that those two automatically removed from our dataset, making it to look as if it's we are a chart. One of the best features that I like while using pivot table and pivot chart in Microsoft Excel is while I'm in a table, there is this particular recommended pivot tables under the table group inside the insert ribbon. If you click on this recommended pivot tables, you will see a lot of tables that you can quickly use to summarize your data set without you generating them manually the way we did in our previous lesson. So take for example, maybe I want to find the sum of quantity, sum of product category, and sum of code. I can easily click on this and then see everything. Now let's show this and I click on OK. Immediately I click on OK, another sheet was created for me automatically, and I'm able to see all this and they were generated for me. Some of sales document, which is not really useful for our analysis, so I can easily uncheck that from the box here, which is some of sales document. I can easily uncheck it from our pivot table field. And also this customer code, I don't want to aggregate this because this is not useful for analysis. So that's just the downside for this particular recommended pivot table. But most of the time, if the customer code is not represented as a number, it won't do any aggregation on it because it is not a number. And the reason why all these ones get generated for us inside our pivot table is because they are number in our data set. And any number that is within our data set, pivot table will try as much as possible to aggregate on them. So let me drag this customer code off the box as well. So with this, I can just go into the customer code and then navigate to where the pivot chart is. If I click on this pivot chart, you'll see all the recommended charts for me. If I can choose any of these charts and everything will be displayed in the way I'm seeing the preview here. I'll be able to see them as well inside the data. Okay, let's use this particular one and then I click on OK. It is now showing in the way I expect it to show for me. So let's take, for example, I want to add this particular company name into the filter. If I add it to the filter, then I can start filtering, and then the moment I start filtering, it will be also reflecting inside the chart that we generated to be reflecting there as well. So take, for example, I change it to this urban right. We have the American US to be there. That is a quick intro on how to use pivot chart in Microsoft Excel. Let's talk about the importance of storytelling in data analytics. Why does storytelling matters? First, storytelling helps your audience connect emotionally and intellectually with your data. Raw number alone don't always resonate, but a compelling story does. It also translates complex analysis into clear, actionable steps. In other words, it helps decision makers do something with the insight. Lastly, a good story makes your presentation memorable and persuasive. Instead of forgetting your chart, they remember the message behind them. One of the best practices to follow when making a presentation for your data analysis: know your audience. Before you present, ask yourself, who am I speaking to? What do they care about? Tailor your story to match their priorities and background knowledge. Highlight key insights. Don't bombard your listeners with too many numbers. Instead, emphasize the most important points that drive the message home. Use visual wisely. Charts and visuals are your storytelling tools. They help simplify complexity and make your message clearer. Maintain a logical flow. Think of your presentation as a journey. Start with an introduction to set the context. Move to the insight from your data, then the implication, why this insight matters, and finally, end with a call to action. This structure helps your story unfold naturally and keeps your audience engaged. Let's wrap up this section with two important takeaways. First, pivot table and pivot chart are important tools that helps us transform raw data into meaningful insight. They allow us to summarize, filter, and visualize data quickly, making it easier to spot trends, patterns, and outliers. Second, storytelling. It enhances the value of your analysis. When you combine data with a clearer narrative, it improves both decision making and communication. Stakeholders don't just want to see numbers, they want to understand what the data means and what to do with it. So, as a data analyst, our role is not just to analyze data, but also to communicate it effectively. That's where tools like pivot table and storytelling techniques really shine. Thank you. See you in our recap class.